What happens if an error arises in a function that you write, though? Well, there are two ways we might handle that. We could handle it inside the function, or we could handle it in the code that makes the function call. So let's take a look at both. We'll create a silly function called divide by 0, and the sole purpose of this function is to generate an error for us to play with. All it does is it tries to print 1 divided by 0. In this first example, we catch the error inside the function. So our code runs, creates the function but skips the body for now because it hasn't been called yet, runs line 8 to print our first message, then runs line 9, which kicks execution into that function. Now it starts that try block, and sure enough it encounters an error on the first line of that try block. So it jumps down to that except, runs it, and runs the line to print the error. And so we see division by 0. That's just the text that this prints when it prints a 0 division error. Notice that we caught any kind of error. So this is a good example of why you might want to print the error information. If you're catching any kind of error, then you want to find out what kind of error was actually generated. After that, we've reached the end of the function, so execution jumps back to the main code. Line 9 is done, so we go to line 10, and it prints that we just encountered an error. So the key here is that we handled the error inside of the function itself, and so our outside code was allowed to keep running. Imagine, though, that we didn't handle the error inside the function itself. This code runs, defines the function, skips the body, prints our initial message, and now it starts a try block, and it tries to run the divide by 0 function. That kicks execution into the function, where it tries to run line 3. But line 3 again generates an error. However, we're not handling the error right here, so what happens to the error? Well, so the error actually comes out and becomes the result of line 7. It's just as if we had put print 1 over 0 on line 7. So that still kicks execution into our except block. It runs, pardon the extra indentation, that's just an error, and so it prints the same thing we saw before, division by 0. And again, our code had no uncaught errors in it, so it proceeds to line 10 and prints that we just encountered an error. Technically, it would print whatever we said there. It doesn't know that we encountered an error, but we know because that's how we designed the code. So here we get effectively the same result that we got before. The error occurs inside the function, but because it isn't caught or handled inside the function, it comes back out to the main program. There, it does get caught by this except block. If that except block wasn't there, then our program would crash. Generally, our error will keep rising through function calls until it gets caught or until it crashes our code. Now that's a pretty advanced principle, so don't worry if it's a bit confusing right now. The real takeaway here is that if an error happens inside a function, it will keep rising until it's handled, and if it's never handled, the program will crash.